Good morning, my dear students. Welcome back to class on history. The previous class or in the previous video, I had explained to you the different terms like the Simon Commission, the revolutionary movement, the second phase of it, the Purna Swaraj resolution, and the beginning of the civil disobedience movement with the Dandi March that was undertaken by Gandhiji. So let's move on with the other events that had taken place towards the independence of our country. So let's begin with the first topic, that is the first round table conference. Okay, the first round table conference. Why was it organized? It was organized in 1930 November in London. So this particular conference, the first round table conference, was organized in 1930 November in London. And what was the aim of this particular gathering? The aim of this particular gathering was to discuss about the reforms or the changes proposed by Simon Commission. To discuss about the features given by Simon Commission. But Congress said we are not going to attend, and they boycotted this particular first round table conference. And it was attended by the Muslim League, Hindu Mahasabha, and the representatives of Indian princes. But this particular conference was a failure one because British understood without the participation of the Congress, no decision can be taken. So that's the reason this particular first round table conference was a total failure, because Congress boycotted this particular conference. So that's what you might the term called the first round table conference that happened in 1930 November. That's the first one. Now second point is Gandhi-Irwin Pact. Gandhi-Irwin Pact means the agreement between Gandhiji and Irwin. It happened in 1931, which means the agreement signed between Gandhiji and the viceroy called Irwin. And what was the agreement? So there are two parts of it. British said they will release the prisoners except they will release the political prisoners except the guilty people. Which means there are some people who are arrested without any reason. So British said, okay, we will release all the political prisoners except those who were found guilty. So that was the agreement made by the British people. And what did the Congress say? Congress said, if you do it, we will attend the second round table conference and we will suspend the civil disobedience movement. This was the agreement made between Gandhiji and the viceroy called Irwin. That happened in 1931. So the British said, we will release all the political prisoners except those who were found guilty. Congress said, yeah, we will stop this particular civil disobedience movement and will participate in the second round table conference. Now let's move on to the next topic, that is the second round table conference. Second round table conference. It happened in 1931 September. Gandhiji accepted. Gandhiji went to attend the second round table conference, and the British had invited the representatives of the Muslims, Sikh, Christian and Indian princes. But in the meeting, British refused to accept the demand made by Gandhiji. So this second round table conference also was a total failure. So based on the Gandhi-Irwin Pact, Gandhiji attended the second round table conference that happened in 1931 September. And British had invited the representatives of the Muslims, Sikh, Christian and Indian princes. But in the meeting, British said, we will not accept the demand made by Gandhiji. So Gandhiji came back and the meeting was a failure. And once Gandhiji returned, Congress resumed the civil disobedience movement, but the British took severe steps, like they kept the people in the jail, arrested the leaders, and in 1934 Congress withdrew this particular movement. So this is what you by the first roundtable conference, followed by the Gandhi-Irving Pact, the second roundtable conference, and the resumption of this particular movement called civil disobedience movement. Hope it is clear so far. Now let's move on to the next one, that is Government of India Act. Government of India Act. Government of India Act. Government of India Act of 1935. In 1935 August, British introduced Government of India Act. And what are the features of it? Or what was the content of it? The first one was India to become a federation if majority of the princely states agree to join it. Which means India will become a federation if the princely states agree to join it. So that's the first suggestion made in the Government of India Act of 1935. Second, the provincial autonomy. Provincial autonomy. Autonomy means the freedom that was given to the provinces or was granted. With this particular Government of India Act, the freedom to the provinces was granted. And they abolished hierarchy. I hope you remember this particular term that you have already learned. They abolished the hierarchy at the provincial level and introduced it in the center. Okay, so they abolished the hierarchy, which means the dual government, at the provincial level, and they introduced this particular system of hierarchy at the center. And this particular suggestion, these are the three features of Government of India Act of 1935, and Congress said we are not ready to accept it. We reject this particular Act, the Government of Act of 1935. And in 1937 Congress decided to contest the elections, and they won majority of the seats, and they almost won in 6 provinces, and they formed ministries in 7 out of 11 provinces. And the ministers who were elected, they did some constructive work in the field of education and for the upliftment of Harijans. This what happened after the Government of India Act of 1935. It was completely rejected by Congress, and they decided to contest the election. They won the election in many provinces, and the ministers who were elected, they began to do very constructive, they undertook various programs like in the field of education and for the upliftment of the Harijans. And the next topic that you are going to learn is about the forward block. And what does it mean? Forward block. In 1939, Subhash Chandra Bose resigned from the Congress. And what was the reason for his resignation? He had some differences of opinion with Gandhiji, so he resigned from Congress and he began a new party called a Forward Bloc. So that was done by Subhash Chandra Bose. He resigned from Congress in 1939 because he had differences of opinion with Gandhiji. So he left Congress and formed a new party called the Forward Bloc. And what are the objectives of it? The first objective was immediate liberation of India from British. The liberation has to be done immediately. Second, establish socialism, abolish, stop the zamindari system, and reorganization of agriculture and industry in socialist lines, which means we have to reorganize agriculture and industry according to the socialism, and introduction of a new monetary system. So these were the objectives of a forward bloc: liberate India from British, establish socialism, abolish zamindari system, reorganize agriculture and industry on socialist lines, introduce new monetary system. With all these objectives, Subhash Chandra Bose became very popular among the people. So what did the British people do? British people arrested him and he was imprisoned. While he was in prison, his health became very bad, so he was kept under house arrest. But in 1941, he escaped from there and landed in Germany. From Germany, he came to Japan and he began to work or fight against the British in India. It was done by Subhash Chandra Bose under the party called Forward Bloc that happened in 1939 because he resigned from Congress due to differences of opinion with Gandhiji, formed a new party, and it had some 5 different objectives. He became popular among the people, which was not liked by British, so they arrested him and kept in prison. Since his health was getting worse, he was kept under house arrest, but in 1941 he escaped to Germany. From Germany he came to Japan later. From there he began to fight against the British. It is clear. Now moving on to the next topic, that is Quit India movement. Quit India movement. This is the last topic that is to be learned today. Quit India movement. In 1939, what happened? We have the beginning of the Second World War. World War II in 1939, and Britain involved India in the Second World War without consulting Congress and Indian leaders, which means India became part of Second World War even without the knowledge of Congress and the Indian leaders. So in 1942 March, we have Sir Stafford Cripps who came to India with some proposals, and Congress said all these suggestions are too late and too little, and Gandhiji described these proposals as a post-dated check on a crashing bank, which means Indians did not accept these particular proposals made by Sir Stafford Cripps. So in 1942, Gandhiji began Quit India movement. In 1942. So in 1942, August 8, we had All India Congress Committee pass this particular resolution, and the objective of Congress was immediate end to British rule in India, which means immediately the British rule must be stopped in India. So people organized mass struggle, and the famous slogan given by Gandhiji was either you do or die. This was a slogan given by Gandhiji. And how did British react to it? So Gandhiji began the Quit India movement. And how did the British people react to it? They took very aggressive steps, banned on Congress and arrested the Congress leaders. But the people took up this particular movement and they organized hartals, demonstrations, and attacked the symbols of British like the telegraph, the railway. And the British took up very terrible, brutal steps against the people. They called the army and they faced the people with the lathi charge. they fired at the people and arrested and tortured the people. So this is how the British people reacted to this particular steps taken by Indian people. And Indian, what happens? Indians had suffered a lot because of the Second World War and because of the terrible famine that happened in 1943, in which almost 30 lakhs people died. But the British did not take a single step to provide any relief. So this is what you by the term called Quit India movement. Which means we have to stop, we have to end the British rule immediately in India. And how did the people cooperate? And what was the reaction of or how did the British government deal with these steps taken by the people? And the most important two things that happened were Indians suffered because of the Second World War and the terrible famine that happened in Bengal in 1943, and the British government did not provide any relief to Indians. I hope you have clear so far. So we had completed the first roundtable conference, followed by the Gandhi-Irving Pact that led to the second roundtable conference. They resumed the civil disobedience movement. The Government of India Act of 1935, the forward block by Subhash Chandra Bose. The last one that we learned was Quit India movement. If we have clear so far, now there are 3 more topics to be completed that I will take in the next class. So kindly complete the notes and prepare well for your exams. Kindly go through the question answers given at the end of the chapter. Find out the answers. If you do not get any answer, please tell me. I will give you the answers. I hope while going through these notes, I hope you must be able to get all the answers. So read the textbook clearly and prepare well for your exam. Okay children, take care. Thank you.